Hello, I'm David Stoddard. This video is for individuals who've been hurt in an accident and have a personal injury claim and have questions about how they're going to get their medical bills paid. Well, and the answer to that question differs depending on whether you have health insurance, and I'm going to include individuals who have Medicaid and Medicare in that category versus people who have no health insurance. So for purposes of this video, when I mention health insurance, that would include individuals with Medicaid or Medicare. Now, if you have health insurance, then you should use your health insurance to pay your medical bills. Some of my clients come to me and they ask, well, now, the accident was not my fault. There's somebody else out there at fault and they should be responsible for these medical bills. Why should my health insurance be responsible for the medical bills? Well, ultimately, the at-fault person will pay these medical bills and your health insurer will get paid. But there are three good reasons why you should use your health insurance. And again, this includes Medicare and Medicaid, at least initially, to pay your medical bills. Now, the reason for this is the way liability insurers settle these claims. They don't pay your expenses as they're incurred. They don't pay your medical bills as they're incurred. They don't pay your lost wages as they're incurred. Rather, they settle the case with one lump sum settlement that includes all of your lost wages, all of your medical bills, and all of your pain and suffering. So this settlement comes at the end of the case. Sometimes it comes after a trial, and sometimes it's a year or several years after the accident. So this is the first reason why you want to use your health insurance. Otherwise, the doctors will be writing you letters, putting your bills into collection until you settle your case. Now, the second reason that you want to use your health insurance to pay these medical bills is there's no guarantee you're going to win your case. In some cases, liability is disputed. A lot of times at the beginning of the case, you don't know if liability is going to be disputed. But where liability is disputed, you could lose the case. Hopefully not, but you never know. There's no guarantee. Even in some cases where liability is admitted by the other side, jurors sometimes return a zero verdict. They don't even provide money for your medical bills. Now, why would this ever happen? Well, in some cases, you get jurors who simply don't believe in personal injury cases. They don't believe you're entitled to any kind of compensation just because you're hurt. Doesn't matter who's at fault. Some of those kinds of jurors are out there, and you may get one on your jury. Sometimes the defense attorney does a very good job of convincing the jury that yes, you have a medical condition, yes, you've got medical treatment and medical bills, but it wasn't caused by the accident. In many cases, especially with back injuries, you have some pre-existing damage to the body part that was injured. And for example, in back injuries, almost everybody at a certain age has some degenerative changes in their spine, and that shows up on the MRIs. And the defense attorney can argue, well, this person had a bad back before the wreck, we didn't cause it. And sometimes you get a zero verdict. So that's reason number two. You may never collect anything from your medical bills, and by the time you find that out, it may be too late to use your health insurance or Medicaid or Medicare to pay those bills. Now, the third reason, and one of the best reasons to use your health insurance to pay your medical bills, is it actually leaves more of your settlement money after all the expenses are paid and lawyers' fees are paid to go to you. Well, why is this? Well, if you don't use your health insurance to pay those medical bills, then you're going to have to pay them out of your settlement. Well, for almost every medical bill, there's one charge that the doctor charges, and there's a discounted charge for health insurance. And this includes Medicaid and Medicare. In fact, Medicaid and Medicare has a larger discount than most health insurers. What this means simply is that when you let your health insurance pay these bills, you actually pay less for all of your medical treatment than if you paid it yourself out of your settlement. Now, ultimately, the at-fault driver will end up paying for your medical bills, and that's because in virtually every health insurance policy, there is a clause that states that if you have a lawsuit against a third party for the medical bills that the health insurer is paying, then the health insurer has a right to be reimbursed out of your settlement proceeds. So this means that the health insurer will be reimbursed. Again, it's just at a lower amount than if you paid the doctors directly. And what's more, the health insurer will normally reduce their bill by the percentage that you have to pay the attorney. If it's a third, they will normally reduce their bill by a third. That way, they're paying the attorney's fee for collecting their money rather than you paying this attorney's fee. So, if you have health insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, to summarize, 3 good reasons to use these resources. Number one, the liability insurer will not pay these bills as they're incurred and as the case is proceeding along, and so these bills will go into collection, and using those resources prevents that. Number 2, there's no guarantee you're ever going to win this case, and so you might as well let your health insurance pay for it and then reimburse the health insurer if you do win, hopefully when you win, at the end of the case. And number 3, when you use these resources, it leaves over more of the settlement money to go to you to compensate you for your loss. Now, let's say you don't have health insurance and you have no Medicaid or Medicare, then what can you do? Well, this creates somewhat of a catch-22 because it's very difficult to pursue a personal injury claim when you can't afford medical treatment, because you really have to have medical treatment to be able to prove that, yeah, you have an injury, how severe your injury is, that your injury is permanent if you do have a permanent injury. You have to get your medical treatment so you can prove what your medical bills are going to be. You usually need a doctor's opinion that, yes, the injuries that you're complaining of were caused by the accident. Well, how do you get all this if you can't afford medical treatment? Again, that's the catch-22 usually. In some cases, if you have an attorney, the attorney can sometimes get a doctor to treat you and agree to be paid out of your settlement after you've settled the case. Usually, doctors will only do this through an attorney. They want an agreement drawn up by the attorney that says they will get paid out of the proceeds of the case. It's a kind of agreement that prohibits the lawyer from even dispersing the money to their patient, the attorney's client, without first paying the doctor for the cost of his medical treatment. Not every doctor will do this. A lot of doctors won't do this. The few doctors that will do this usually insist on an assurance from the attorney that this is a case of absolute liability. Usually they want the attorney to be able to tell the doctor that the insurance company has accepted liability. Now, if you have a claim that's disputed by the insurance company saying it is not our insured's fault, or they're saying we contest or dispute that this injury was caused by the accident, you may not be able to get a doctor who will treat you. We call it treating you on a lien against the case. If that is the case, then you may have to find a doctor that will treat you for what little you can pay as you go along. Sometimes you have to go ahead and try to settle the case without any medical treatment. Usually you need at least one evaluation from a doctor saying this is what your injury is, this is what I estimate the kind of treatment you're going to need is, so you can have some estimate of what the medical cost will be, and try to settle the case that way, or even go to trial on that basis. If you have any further questions about personal injury law in general, or you have a specific question about your case, feel free to call my office or visit my website. We have other information available at the website. All of the contact information will appear at the end of this video. And I hope you found this video to be somewhat helpful and informative.